talking about GPU, and what GPU in particular is happening to begin to show its age, and that is the Gigabyte 1060 6GB. So, to begin things off, this card came out in July 19th of 2016, and even to this day, according to Steam, is one of the most used GPUs. Now that this card is over 4 years old, I figured it's a great time to talk about it, and most importantly, should you still buy one in 2021? Now, short answer is no. No, you really shouldn't, considering the 1660 came out last year, and it's cheaper, and it even performs better than the 1060. However, that does not make it a bad card by any means. Even to this day, it's still considered a high-performance GPU, but the problem lies within its history as a card. So, 1060s, without a doubt, happen to be one of the most used cards for crypto mining to ever be released. The reason for this is, for the first 2 years, they were very cheap, a good price for what you were getting. I got my card in late of 2017 for well under $300, brand new. But nowadays, you can expect to spend over $300 for a new card, which are slowly becoming harder and harder to find now. As I said before, the reason for this is crypto mining, and these cards were so well suited for that because of how cheap they were, even when you bought them in bulk, and how low the power consumption is. The power consumption is only 120 watts, and this is a fully sized card, so that's pretty decent. There were other cards such as the Gigabyte P106, which was by all means nearly identical to the 1060 in looks and performance. However, these cards were specifically made for crypto mining, so you couldn't exactly use them. They didn't have any video output whatsoever. The problem with this card is crypto mining is not nearly as popular as it used to be, so there are tens of thousands of these P106s that have absolutely no use. Most of them are being thrown away, and some of them are being resold for as little as $60, which is incredibly cheap for what is basically a 1060. And even Linus Tech Tips, he made a video where he actually got one of these to display on a monitor, and he even played some games, and it performed like a 1060. But this card also has another reputation of being faked, especially the Gigabyte 1060, because it's one of the more generic 1060s you could actually buy. If you see a fake 1060, the chances are it will look similar to this GPU, so be careful what you're buying. Don't shop on Wish.com or AliExpress. You're just not going to have a good time on those sites at all. Now, let's get down to some actual benchmarking, specs, and eventually we're going to play some games. So we're going to start with opening Tech PowerUp GPU Z, which is a piece of software literally everybody should have. So we have our 6 gigs of memory size, which is promised, and then we also have 1557 megahertz GPU clock and default clock. The boost clock is 1772. So I actually have a screenshot of a 1060 right here to compare when it loads. There we go. So if you compare, obviously the GPU and the boost clock is going to be a little bit higher. Same with the default clock. Memory is actually a little bit less, but this stuff here, it's important, but it's not really important as this junk all up here. So as you can see, the 1080, outperforms the 1060 in pretty much everything: bandwidth, bus width, even memory type, pixel filtrate, shaders. Obviously the 1080 is going to be a lot better. This GPU clock and the boost stuff doesn't necessarily mean everything. You're going to want to look at your shaders and your texture filtrate and your bandwidth. I don't actually have any way to see the CUDA cores, but I can tell you for a fact right now this probably has a little bit over 1,000 CUDA cores, and the 1080 has definitely a lot more than that. So the next thing I have here is a little software called User Benchmark, which is great for generally seeing how your whole PC performs, but it does tell you how your GPU performs. So we're going to hit yes. and we're going to hit run. It's going to take a few seconds, and it will benchmark my CPU, my RAM, my SSD, my HDD, and my graphics card, which it will actually do that last. So I'm just going to be waiting for a little bit. Right now it's just going through my CPU. Now it's either doing my HDD or my SSD. Or maybe that, no, that was my RAM. Cancel that. Okay, now it's doing drives. Doing my C drive. Now it's doing my SSD. There we go. Should be benchmarking my GPU any second now. There we go. It's just gonna do a quick few benchmarks. I think there's only 2 or 3 more after this one. Okay, now we have to wait about 30 seconds or so. But as we can see, you can see for a second, it got about what you would expect. A little over 60 FPS, 1080p, which is what I just said, what you would expect from a 1060. No more, no less. Not bad, not great. 1660 would have definitely performed considerably better. Probably even a 1650, no, not probably, definitely a 1650 Super would have performed better. So now it's going to open up this right here, and we got a 49%, which I don't exactly know what that means, but our graphics is highlighted under an orangish yellow, which is, it's not great, but it's not necessarily bad. Technically, you want it to be over in the 60 percentile over here. I'm sure it would have ran better if I didn't have anything open, stuff in the background, but we got 54% average, which puts us in the 23rd percentile, which is in between poor and great, which would make it good. And that's generally how the 1060 performs overall. It's a good GPU. It's not great by any means, but it will play 1080p at a nice, smooth 60 FPS. But if I had something like a 2070 Ti in here, our average would probably be, I'd say like up here. Definitely halfway or more through the green. Then we have our other stuff. This is a really, really great benchmark. I definitely recommend User Benchmark. It's a very big software. A lot of people use it. But anyways, I guess let's begin some games. So let's start with the easiest game I'm going to be benchmarking today, which is going to be Skyrim, which this card will have no problem running at all. Everything's on Ultra, obviously. I also have like a shit ton of mods on, so a lot of graphical mods and such. And it's what you would expect. It's Skyrim. Any potato can run this game, honestly. But yeah, very playable. Looks good. I'm not recording a voiceover right now, so I'm actually murdering some wolves in real time, as God intended. Anyways, yeah, it's great. Any 1% in 0.1% low is probably me looking up in the sky real quick, anything like that. But let's move on to a more demanding game. So next up is Rust, and I'm actually doing a voiceover. As you can see, I do not have all the settings to max because personally that's just what I play with. I typically don't max Rust out because it's kind of a game you want to maximize your FPS with, but it still looks pretty nice. It's a little bit muddy because of the performance graphics and such, and also for some reason anytime I record Rust on Shadowplay it just doesn't look that good. but it's very, very playable. I actually play Rust quite a lot, and it's a game you really want to have at least 80 FPS with. I actually have a limiter FPS cap here that caps it at 80 FPS just for a little bit of a smoother experience, but if I don't have that on, typically I'll see FPSs of 90 to 100. I really should have turned it off, to be completely honest. So next up we have a pretty graphically demanding game, which is the title Insurgency Sandstorm. And overall it looks quite nice. It is a mixture of very high and high graphics, and we're seeing about an FPS of 75, max of 85. And you'll see right here how bad I am at this game. Haven't played it in quite a while. I just missed a whole drum mag on 2 bots. But we have a 0.1% of 7 FPS and a 1% of 42. That 7 FPS is probably from a quick stutter in the beginning of the game, and the 42 is probably quite accurate. Probably getting that 42 every once in a while, but it seems like we are getting a nice smooth experience of over 60 FPS, which is really all you can ask for from the 1060, because that's what it's made for. 60 FPS, 1080 gaming, and it does that flawlessly. So lastly, we have the likes of Tarkov, which I am not going to do a voiceover for. We're just gonna play it a little bit. Real-time gaming. I bet you don't get this in other tech channels, even though I'm not a tech channel. But, anyways, looks pretty good. You know, this is a pretty performance-intensive game, to be completely honest. Not the easiest to run in the world. Not the easiest to play in the world, either. I'm really bad. Come on, get in there. Okay, there we go. But it runs nice. Tarkov is not the easiest game to run by any means. Not even shot at. I'm just playing scav bots, by the way. Not actually playing online. I'm too bad for that. I'm too bad for that. Where'd this little boy go? See, this is why you don't do, or this is why you do voiceovers, because then you actually have something to say. You actually have shit to say instead of just playing the game. Anyways, it looks good. Seems like we're getting an average about 60 FPS. If there's any... Sorry about that. Anyways, if there's any real issues with frame drop, to be completely honest, it's probably an issue with my RAM, because I have a Ryzen 5 3600, and my RAM is only performing at 2,133 megahertz, which is not great. You know, if you have a Ryzen processor, you should have at least like a 3,000 megahertz RAM, which my RAM is rated for, so I'm gonna have to go into the BIOS and do some stuff, but I've just been too lazy. But other than that, it's running quite nicely. This has just turned into like a Tarkov gameplay. Let's go kill a few more scavs, and then that will conclude this video. Oh, a little bit of a frame drop right there. This is definitely one of the harder games you could run on a 1060. Maybe when Cyberpunk comes out, I'll try running it on that too, because the actual recommended requirements for Cyberpunk 2077 is a 1060 6 gig. So maybe I'll have to see how that works. Oop, another little frame drop right there. Oh shit. Where is he though? There he is. Oh. Right, C is prone. I was just playing Sandstorm, and Control is prone in that. So that's head. Anyways, you're expected to see about 60 FPS with Tarkov, which is very playable. It would be nice if it was a little bit higher, which obviously, if you turn the settings down a little bit, you would definitely get a nice, smoother FPS rate. But we have 1% lows of 40 FPS, our minimum seems to be 42, and our 0.1% seems to be around 70 FPS, which would be from those drops we were getting earlier. Exactly what I would personally expect from a 1060, 60 FPS, 1080p gaming. That's what this thing is for, after all. So, right off the bat, before I end the video, I would like to apologize for not actually having any footage of the 1060. But, sadly, all the footage I got corrupted, and I tried to take more footage. It also got corrupted, so sadly, I was not able to get any footage of the 1060 I own. But that doesn't really matter. I got a lot of good clips of games and benchmarks, so I'm quite happy with the video. And I will definitely be making new videos soon. However, I don't know exactly what they're gonna be. I'm just gonna make whatever I like. But anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this video has kind of showed you that maybe if you're considering buying a 1066GB, you should look for something else because there's a lot better options out there. Anyways, have a good one. Peace.